Right now, more breaking news. A shooting in a busy food court in downtown Atlanta. Police say shots were fired around 2 o'clock this afternoon at the hub at Peachtree Center. Now, to get a closer look at this map on your screen. We know 4 people, including the suspect, were shot in the food court, which is right here on Peachtree Street. 11 Alive anchor Ron Jones is live on the scene, where we know an off-duty officer, Ron, intervened and was able to stop the gunman. What else can you tell us?
And as it all unfolded here, Jonathan, it was absolutely wild. So APD tells us that it all started with an argument. The gunman, the alleged gunman, getting into an argument with someone right here in the food court over my shoulder. As you can see, there's still a very heavy police presence. They still have the tape up as they're gathering more information. But during that argument, according to APD, that suspect then shot the person he was arguing with. And then there were 2 other people who were shot as well. Not quite sure what the relationship was between the suspects and the suspect and the victims. However, the ages of the victims are 70 years old, 69 years old, 49 years old. The suspect has a criminal history, according to APD. He just spent 10 years behind bars, behind prison bars, for armed robbery. And the police chief, Darren Sherabaum, he tells us this is not the first time they've had a run-in with a suspect. They have talked to him and had encounters with him multiple times.
The person that we have in custody is a convicted felon. He has served prison time for an armed robbery, and he has 11 previous arrest cycles. This is an individual that should never have been possessing a gun, an individual that should never have placed this community in harm, but that an officer of this department was able to stop that threat.
And that's something we should point out. So an off-duty officer just happened to be on the scene at the same time that those shots were fired. That off-duty officer then engaged the suspect, shooting the suspect at the same time. Another officer was also here to be able to kick that gun away from the suspect. So now the GBI is investigating. Anytime that there's a local law enforcement agency that is involved in a shooting, that's where the GBI comes in, and that's when we bring in 11 Alive's Cody Alcorn to give us that perspective. Cody?
Yeah, Ron, so right now the GBI crime scene specialists are inside. In fact, I'm going to step out just a little bit, because if you're not familiar with this area, this hub is actually down the escalator. So that's where the crime scene is. That's where the GBI crime specialists are right now, collecting evidence from this crime scene. They are the lead on this investigation. Now, they also have GBI agents here who are actively investigating these officers who not only witnessed this, but also the officer who opened fire. They actually do these interviews inside their SUVs. There's a couple of them parked right to my left here on John Portman Boulevard. They put those individuals, those officers, inside that SUV. They have camera systems inside, and that's where they actually do on-site interviews to find out exactly what happened, and of course to get their eyewitness account of this officer-involved shooting. So again, while the scene has calmed down, there's a lot going on down that escalator where this all unfolded, and it'll take some weeks for the entire report to be released by the GBI.
Okay, Cody, thanks a lot for that perspective. We're going to bring in Molly Oaks. She was here just maybe an hour or so or less as soon as those shots were fired. And you spoke with multiple witnesses who actually saw and they heard what was going on. What did they tell you?
Yeah, a couple of different witnesses told us they were inside when they either heard the shots or actually saw the shooter. They echoed what police said, that they saw some kind of argument, and then that man just started shooting. Not only the person they had an argument with, but then 2 other people. Now, the witnesses tell me it seemed like he was just shooting anyone he could see. We asked police specifically about that claim. They said right now all they can call those people are bystanders. They said the investigation will hopefully give them more information about who those people are. I also talked with a witness who was outside right after the shooting happened. She says she saw people running out from behind us, and then they were just yelling at her, "Run, run, there's a shooter." Here is what she heard.
And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like an influx of people were just like sprinting out of there in all different directions. And we were like, what is going on? And somebody like screamed like, there's a shooting, there's a shooter, like run. And we were right here on this corner, like literally right behind me. And so we just went and like got into the Hyatt, and as soon as we got there, they were on lockdown. And so we were in there for about an hour, and they just now started letting people out, but this is as far as we can go.
Now, all of the witnesses talked about just the chaos that was here. One witness says that in addition to thanking that officer who stepped in that the police chief mentioned, she also wanted to thank the restaurant owners who she says were pulling people inside restaurants. She says they deserve a lot of credit for saving a lot more lives. But you talk about that chaos that was here. areas on lockdown. Ron, not only was the area on lockdown, we also saw dozens and dozens of officers, even though they already had the suspect. With your perspective from being in law enforcement, why was there such a heavy presence after they already had him?
Well, they have to look for any additional victims that may be out there. Just think about that. There's bullets flying around here. It's a heavy populated area, a lot of buildings as well. They're still going to have to go from building to building, room to room, to see if there's any other victims out there. That's what they do. Also, they have to look for any witnesses. As you pointed out with the witness that you spoke with, folks are scattering. It's chaos. They're running, right? Well, if they end up coming back to the scene, they need to speak with those witnesses as they build the case against that potential suspect. All right, Molly, we really appreciate your perspective. Cody, we appreciate your perspective concerning the GBI. So, Jonathan, we're going to be out here for most of the night, continuing to monitor the situation and find out a lot more how this all unfolded.
Yeah, a lot more we're looking to learn. But Ron, thanks so much for that report. And you can